Good morning. Today is Tuesday, May 5th, 2026. This is the New Hampshire House of Representatives Municipal and County Government Committee. I am Representative Diane Power, and the committee is convened today at 10:30 for the purpose of executing the 8 Senate bills that are in our committee. At this time, I would like to welcome 2 new members to the committee, and I would like to welcome Representative Howland. Welcome back. And I would also like to welcome Representative Jack to the committee, as well as Representative Harvey. She's been part of our committee for a couple of months now. So at this time, I would ask that you would please silence your cell phones and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Representative Girard.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And as is customary, I have just a few quick morning announcements. So as I said, we'll be holding executive sessions on the 8 Senate bills that we have. So we will work through those, and I will take a look at the clock to see where we're at with regards to those bills. And if needed, we will break for lunch. If we're close to the noon hour and it looks like we can complete our work without taking a lunch break, we will do so. But I will confer with the ranking member on that schedule. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a statement to make. Our committee, which acted on more than 80 bills this term in a process that was ably expedited by you with appropriate urgency, has finally convened to vote on our last 8 bills. Prior to the last raft of bills that came back to the House, I wrote to you the day before that session, having not heard what your recommendations would be. You took that opportunity to chastise me for having done so, and today I register my own dissatisfaction. It has taken a month for you to schedule today's executive session, a month in which there has been no communication from the chair to the ranking member, and by extension to other committee members. I can only speculate on what has been taking your time and attention, but you have a responsibility to this committee and to the sponsors of the bills we will vote on today to move them through the process as expeditiously as you've done with previous bills. I want to be perfectly clear that I do not wish to debate this matter. We've waited too long to get here and we have work to do. But I will state for the record that we could have disposed of these bills weeks ago, bills that represent important matters for our constituents. We are now staring down the barrel of a very tight deadline. I regret that we are in such a position and disappointed that it's taken so long to get here. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Davis, and I will respond to your remarks. So at no point have you contacted me, and let me be very clear, as the chair of this committee appointed by the Speaker of the House, yes, it is absolutely my responsibility to schedule hearings, which I do and have done. Additionally, no deadlines have failed to be met, and we are on schedule. And I would also like to add that it makes absolutely no difference when hearings are scheduled, whether it's up front real quick, at the beginning of crossover. There's no requirement to have an executive session at any point in time after a hearing. And it's disappointing that if you had some concerns that you didn't reach out to me, because to be clear, you do not understand all the work that has gone in to getting to this point, to hold this executive session. And additionally, I am sorry that you feel like you were chastised with regards to consent calendar messages. Again, you failed to have the conversation with me to seek understanding as to the situation, and Unfortunately, you jump to conclusions which are incorrect. You can attest to the fact that I have been very accessible. I have spent a lot of time communicating with you, and I remain to act in that capacity. If you fail to reach out to me to ask a question, I am unfortunately unable to read people's minds, so I'm not sure what I can do. So let me make it very clear that there's nothing, nothing has been done out of step or incorrectly or contrary to House rules. And with that being said, we will continue our meeting here today.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Representative McDonald,
I'd like to request a Republican caucus.
how much time would you like?
Probably 30 minutes.
Okay, so it is 20 of 11. We will break for a caucus, and the committee will reconvene here today at 10 past 11. At this time, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 435 relative to the Zoning Board of Adjustment variance criteria. Do I have a motion? Chair recognizes Representative Majori for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I would move ought to pass on Senate Bill 435.
Is there a second? Chair Representative Fracht seconds the motion. Representative Majori, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I will. First, I want to say that I think we're doing something good here. We're actually breaking a little bit with our tradition. Normally, when we don't have a sponsor, we go ITL on a bill. There was no sponsor for here, but there was a good amount of discussion. I will certainly understand if the OTP, I did say OTP, right? Okay. I will understand if the OTP is overturned because we want to keep with our precedent. But this bill is actually the result of some hard work that was done by the sponsors in conjunction with the Municipal Association. I know that. And in response to court cases that we have heard where there have been problems with the current language that we have for the 5 criteria for the zoning board. Now, many of us have had discussions here. I think we've even had them across the aisle. I think there's still some more work that needs to be done here or can be done here. And I would like to continue to look at that. But for the time being, because of the hard work that's been done and because we do understand from the court system through NHMA that this bill will solve some issues, I think it's worthy of ought to pass. And I thank you for your time and indulgence.
Further comments? Representative Dolan is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that keeping with our precedent, when a bill is not represented by the sponsor or a co-sponsor, it means that those of us that are inquiring about the bill cannot get the answers that we need to vote on it. So I think in this case, since the sponsor and co-sponsors did not make themselves available, then I believe it ought to be ITL.
Further comments? So I will like to add that, as we know, unfortunately, the prime sponsor did not introduce the bill, nor did the prime sponsor send any of the co-sponsors to introduce the bill, nor did the prime sponsor send a staff member to introduce the bill. And so legislators, they are the people that sponsor the bill, not outside agencies. And I think that it's very important that this committee do their due diligence and hear from any number of the sponsors on the bill. And so for that reason, I will not be supporting the motion of ought to pass. Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is ought to pass on Senate Bill 435, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
No.
Representative Guthrie,
No.
Representative Dolan,
No.
Representative Alward. No. The clerk votes no. Representative Franz.
No.
Representative Karazinski.
No.
Representative Murphy.
No.
Representative Walker.
No.
Representative Gerard.
No.
Representative Stavis.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Majori.
Yes.
Representative Fracht.
I'll vote yes.
Representative Colby.
No.
Representative Grund.
No.
Representative Harvey.
No.
Representative Howland,
No.
Representative Jack.
No.
No.
Madam Chair,
No.
correct, 2 to 18.
The motion of ought to pass on Senate Bill 435 fails with a vote of 2 to 18. Do I have a further motion? Representative Dolan is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to motion that it's inexpedient to legislate.
Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Walker seconds that. Representative Dolan, would you like to speak to your motion? Is there any further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us on Senate Bill 435 is inexpedient to legislate, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Aylward,
Yes.
the clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karasinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Representative Harvey,
Yes.
Representative Howland,
Yes.
Representative Jack,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 20 to 0. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 435 is inexpedient to legislate, and without objection, that will go on the consent calendar. And who will write the the committee report? Representative Dolan, would you like to write the committee report? Okay, thank you. And with that, the chair will close the executive session on Senate Bill 435. At this time, the chair opens the executive session on Senate Bill 508 relative to the Zoning Board of Adjustment appeal period. The chair recognizes Representative Status.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to present Amendment 13448H to Senate Bill 508.
Is there a second? Representative Gilman seconds that motion, and Representative Stavis, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I strongly support Section 1 of Senate Bill 508. I think that all grounds for appeal must be stated in the initial notice is a bracing and much-needed change. In fact, it is something that we strive to do in Lebanon all the time in our planning board. And our planning director tells me that 84% of all applications are either accepted or denied on an initial meeting. And so I fully support that change in the RSA. The second section, which my amendment removes from the bill, I find confusing and practically impossible for any planning board to follow. It doesn't define what stamping means or accepting means. It gives planning boards 10 days to respond, which is not possible under 91A and under the rules and regulations of most planning boards. And it says that applicants shall not be required to revise plans more than once, which again runs against standard practice. And it's normally the case when a developer brings a project to a planning board that the planning board has helpful suggestions, the applicant goes back, revises the application, and it is usually accepted. At least that is the case in Lebanon. So I think that, that this bill is a terrific bill in its first section, and would be terrific if it ended there. And so I'm happy to present that amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further comments? Representative Majori is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for you, though, before I make comments. My comment isn't specifically to the amendment, which eliminates Section 2. It's all about Section 2. Am I allowed to talk about Section 2 now, and why I think the amendment is a good idea?
I would determine that would be relevant because the amendment before us strikes Section 2, so
Okay.
that would be fine in my book.
Okay. Thank you. So I was on the planning board for a little while in my town, and looking at this, and actually consulting with my planning and zoning administrator, we came up with 17 different issues raised by Section 2 of just those 4 sentences. So I agree with my colleague from Lebanon that the first section is absolutely fine. I think the second section is not fine. Specifically, or first I'll say that you're putting this language in the wrong section of law. You're trying to put this into, 676.5. It belongs in 676.4. Now, I don't know if that's just something that they can fix in the enroll build process if it were to pass, but we're talking about the wrong section of law here. Also, to the timing of this, 10 days isn't an awful lot of time. I understand why 10 days is important. Time is money. But the time issue on the town side is time to prepare, for instance, if they need to go to council. Council can't necessarily respond in 10 days. They may need to go to other sources where they're thinking about the health and welfare of the community, and 30 days is the time to prepare that information. So while I completely respect that 10 versus 30 is a time issue, we're talking in many instances about the health and welfare of the community. So I think that's very important. To the point again that my colleague from Lebanon brought up, this section purportedly has a town employee signing off on this plan. That puts a town employee in a terrible situation if there is an issue. This needs to be much more specific about who is doing that. And it really should not be, again, a town employee, because by statute, it needs to be the planning board. So what you're doing is you're giving a town employee the statutory authority of the planning board to sign off on a plan. That should be reason enough to support the amendment. If you want to come back and look at this another way, fine, but this amendment is important because you cannot have a town employee be put in a situation where they could be held culpable for something that was not their fault. There are many other situations here. I could go on. Like I said, I came up with 17 different ones here, but I think I've brought up the salient ones. For those reasons, I support the amendment to strike Section 2 and would hope that my colleagues would do the same. Thank you.
Further comments? Representative Grund is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Majori, for a few of your comments. The one that I go back to, and I believe I said it during, I asked the question in a public hearing, on what if they don't meet the 10 days? Does it just mean it passes? Does it mean what? It's still held up, so why move to 10 days if we're not sure it can be met and we have no idea what the next step would be? So I'm in favor of this amendment. Thank you.
Further comments? I have a few comments. So as we heard during the public hearing on this bill, under current RSAs, we see a practice where some municipalities are delaying projects by repeatedly introducing new requirements for development applications very late in the approval process. And it's like a merry-go-round. It keeps going on and on. And what this results in is repeat delays that extend the process for months, or we've even heard even years. So these unnecessary delays create increased costs, which, to be clear, are ultimately borne by the home. If we're talking about housing, it's ultimately passed on to either the homeowners or the renters. And so it was clear to me in the hearing that there is a lack of a clear, structured timeline. And as a result, there's uncertainty for both applicants and local boards alike. So I am going to talk about the two sections of the bill because as I allowed Representative Majority to speak to the bill as a whole, due to the fact that the amendment strikes Section 2. I do support Section 1. What that does is it requires all grounds for appeal to be stated in the initial notice. And what this does, in my understanding, is it stops appellants from similarly employing their own delay tactics. I am aware in my town where this happened with a developer. They kept making appeals, and it just went on and on. And so I think from what I've heard thus far, we're in agreement with the Section 1. And so moving on to Section 2, Section 2 of the bill addresses delays caused by the municipality. So as we see that, it adds a completely new section. So a quick comment with regards to this potentially being in a wrong section. I mean, OLS drafted it and they put it under 676.5. And perhaps that could be because if you look at this and understand this, it's purely administrative. So and the other thing that I would say that's important is that this whole section, Roman numerals 1 through 3, really need to be taken in context as a whole and not just piecemeal, because they all work together and they all explain what is going on in the section with regards to stamping and accepting plans. So the stamping is an administrative process. When plans are submitted, they're stamped with a date. And then the acceptance is that these revised plans are looked at, and again, it's an administrative process, and it's determined that yes, these plans have been revised per the board's direction, and they're ready. These plans are ready to move on to the next step, which is that the revised plans will go before the planning board to be either accepted or denied in the approval process. And I think that it's important. My clear understanding is like acceptance is not the same as approval. Acceptance, as written in this bill, means you follow the directions. You made the revisions according to the feedback that you received. And again, to be clear, the planning board still has the final say. They need to look at the plans and they can either approve or deny. And so again, I think that I feel firmly that this sets up a clear timeline. And it says that within 10 business days, that the revised plans will be stamped and accepted to go to the next step. And then section 3, I guess, reaffirms that an applicant shall not be required to keep having to have to redo a process once it's been determined that they revise the plans based on the feedback. So just in summation, I find that this bill is a common sense. Okay, I'll hold my summary comment because I guess what I'm saying is that parts 1 and 2, that they are important, and there's two sides to the coin, and that section 1 of the bill and section 2 addresses both of those sides, and to remove one, I find is problematic and only addresses half of the situation that we have examples and evidence of. So for those reasons, I cannot support this amendment. Further comments? Representative Frucht.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have been on my town's planning board for, I think, 8 years now, possibly more than that. I have never seen a set of plans presented to the board that were stamped as accepted. So I suspect that different municipalities handle it in different ways. If there's a very small town with no administrative support for the planning board, who's going to stamp it? We don't know. As to the limit on a single revision, if the planning board were to direct the applicant to revise, let's say, a drainage plan, and the applicant in good faith does that, but in doing that, the applicant is dumping surface runoff onto someplace where it shouldn't be, then the planning board should be able to say, well, yes, you have done what we asked you to do, but it's caused another problem. And would you please address the new problem that you've created? So while I very much favor section 1, I just see section 2 as being very hard to administer, being unfair to planning boards, and being not to the best interest of the communities which the planning boards are elected or appointed to serve. So therefore, I am in very strong support of the amendment that deletes a section which is just, in my mind, impossible. Thank you.
Further comments? Representative Gilman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Representative Frack's comments. I think Section 1 the change is good and appropriate. Section 2, I really have trouble with the 10-day submission for the stamping of revised plans. When does the public know that that's occurred? I had questioned at the hearing when in Section 1, it talks about an abutter having a certain amount of time, hence 30 days, to appeal a decision by the planning board or the zoning board, and that is not addressed in Section 2. So my question is, are those 10 days and 30 days concurrent? Nobody knows who's stamping the drawing, depending on the town or city. It just, to me, is very awkward and not good for the abutters of a piece of property that's going to be changed and maybe in a substantial way. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further comments? Representative Grind is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to go back and revisit the stamping of drawings. The stamping of drawings, the stamp itself, that's an administrative process, but it's the approval process that is not administrative. And to go through the approval process before the plans are stamped, that is not administrative. So that's why I'm uncomfortable with the stamp being considered administrative. Thank you.
Further comments? Is there anybody else who has not commented who wishes to comment? Representative Majority, you already spoke to this?
Yes, I did. And with your permission, Madam Chair, just one other thing I wanted to add that is totally different.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. The one thing I would like to add to all of this point about stamping and accepting is we don't have input for the Registry of Deeds. I would like to know from them what what their input is on this to say that's acceptable, this is not acceptable, just as a matter of due diligence. Thank you.
Further comments? Okay. Seeing none, the motion before us is to accept amendment number 2026-1348H to Senate Bill 508, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
No.
Representative Guthrie,
No.
Representative Dolan,
No.
Representative Alward.
No.
The clerk votes no. Representative Franz,
No.
Representative Karasinski,
No.
Representative Murphy,
No.
Representative Walker,
No.
Representative Gerard,
No.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Representative Harvey,
Yes.
Representative Howland,
Yes.
Representative Jack,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
No. Amendment 2026-0-1348H to Senate Bill 508 fails with a vote of 9-11. Do I have a motion? Representative Dolan is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'd like to move that the 508 is OTP.
Is there a second? Representative Gerard seconds that. Representative Dolan, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is ought to pass on Senate Bill 508, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Alward,
Yes.
the clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karasinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Frocht,
No.
Representative Colby,
No.
Representative Grund,
No.
Representative Harvey,
No.
Representative Howland,
No.
Representative Jack,
No.
Madam Chair.
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 11-9. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 508 is ought to pass. And Representative Dolan, will you write the majority report?
Yeah.
And minority report will be written by Representative Stavis. Thank you. And with that, the chair will close the executive session on Senate Bill 508. At this time, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 495, increasing the limit for transfers of appropriations in Carroll County. Do I have a motion? Representative McDonald is recognized for a motion.
ITL.
Is there a second? Representative Walker seconds the motion. Representative McDonald, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, please. As I recall, the prime sponsor came in and asked us to ITL this particular bill, if my memory serves me correctly.
That is my recollection. Is further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 495. The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Alward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karasinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Representative Harvey,
Yes.
Representative Howland,
Yes.
Representative Jack,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 20-0. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 495 is ought to pass. And without objection, that will go on the consent calendar. And who would like to write the report?
I believe the motion was ITL.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. A little bit on autopilot. Okay, so let's rewind that. Thank you. The motion passes with a vote of 20-0. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 495 is inexpedient to legislate. And without objection, that will go on the consent calendar. And who will be writing the committee report?
I guess I will.
Representative McDonald, thank you. And with that, the chair will close the executive session on Senate Bill 495. Next, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 585 FN relative to audits for communication districts. Chair recognizes Representative Grund for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to introduce Amendment 1769H.
Is there a second? Representative seconds that. Representative Grund, would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure, thank you very much. So I made an amendment that requires an audit if they reach revenue or expenses at $50,000. I felt that the $2 million limit in there was a bit high. The only communication district that I could find in the state was in Carroll County, and their cash on hand is on their website, and it's $10,367. So if they're starting to have revenue of $50,000 and or expenses starting to be spent, I think that should trigger an audit at that point. So that's why I put the limit there. I felt it wasn't too low that would trigger an audit, but it was enough to make sure that we were making sure that money is being spent appropriately. Thank you.
Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is to accept Amendment 2026-1769H to Senate Bill 585FN, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Elward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karasinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Representative Harvey,
Yes.
Representative Howard,
Yes.
Representative Jack,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Amendment 2026-1769H is accepted with a vote of 20-0. Do I have a further motion? Representative Grund is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion of OTPA.
Is there a second? Representative Davis seconds that, and Representative Grund, would you like to speak to your motion?
I don't think much more needs to be said. I just, I can understand their concern of only having a small amount of money and not wanting to trigger an audit every year based on that. So I support this bill. That's
Thank you. Further comments? I might add that it's my understanding that the prime sponsor was consulted with regards to this amendment, and the prime sponsor was supportive of the amendment that we just adopted. Further, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, the motion before us is ought to pass with Amendment 2026-1769H to Senate Bill 585FN, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Elward,
Yes.
the clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karasinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yeah. Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Representative Harvey,
Yes.
Representative Howland,
Yes.
Representative Jack,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 20-0. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 585FN is ought to pass with amendment. Now, I do note that this bill has a fiscal note, but there's no information, so without objection, this bill will go on the consent calendar. And Representative Grund, you'll write the committee report. Thank you. And with that, the chair will close the executive session on Senate Bill 585FN. Next, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 440, relative to the adoption of energy efficient and clean energy districts by municipalities. And do I have a motion? Oh, Representative Davis is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move ought to pass on Senate Bill 440.
Is there a second? Representative Gilman seconds that. Representative Davis, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very briefly, this bill pertains to a program called CPACER, which is designed to help municipalities identify districts within their boundaries that are ideal for developing new housing, new commercial activity with clean, renewable energy, and the like. It is a very good program. I speak as a Lebanon City Councilor. We have just adopted the CPACER program for one of our districts, and it's a very good program to work with. This bill expands the ability of other types of municipalities to adopt CPACER, and I think that having it spread to more municipalities across the state is a good policy move, and therefore I support this bill.
Further comments? So I would like to add that after the hearing on this bill, I did spend extensive time analyzing this bill. And I also reached out to several parties to ask questions and further understand the implications of this bill. So as we know, last session, the legislature modified the CPACER statute to streamline funding to enable the construction of commercial and multifamily housing. We need housing in the state. So unfortunately, that version of the bill had a problem in it, that I believe, and it's my understanding that the bill as written, as Representative Davis pointed towards, was that it failed to take into account the different forms of town governance that we have in the state of New Hampshire. And so what the result of that is that forms of town governance that did not have a charter, it made it very difficult, extremely difficult for those municipalities to establish such a CPACER district. So that was identified, and that's the reason for this bill. It's somewhat of a housekeeping bill to address that. So like I said, I spent a lot of time understanding the implications of that. And to be clear, this bill doesn't create any new taxes. It doesn't authorize municipal debt. It really doesn't change anything. It simply ensures that non-charter municipalities will be on, I don't know if this is a good word, but a level playing field in order to be able to set up a CPACER district, which is completely voluntary. There's no requirements for anybody to participate in that, but my understanding is that the funding is available at a certain point in time, and that's why it's important to be able, that's why this bill is important, and I feel that this bill represents a targeted, reasonable approach that makes the ability to access this program consistent across our state. So I'm in favor of this motion. Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is ought to pass on Senate Bill 440, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Elward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karazinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Davis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Representative Harvey,
Yes.
Representative Howland,
Yes.
excuse me. Representative Jack,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 20-0. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 440 is ought to pass. Without objection, that will go on the consent calendar. And who would like to write the report? Representative Davis, thank you. And with that, the chair will close the executive session on Senate Bill 440. Next, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 439 relative to municipal data center zoning. And the chair recognizes Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to present an amendment to this bill, and it's 2026-18078H.
Is there a second? Representative Walker seconds that. And would you like to speak to your motion?
And I think it's pretty self-explanatory on the back here.
Okay, I'll speak to the motion, seeing that I am the prime sponsor of this amendment that's before us. So to be very clear, since the hearing, which was like 4 weeks ago, I have spent an inordinate amount of time working on this bill and on this amendment with subject matter experts, both here in the state and outside of the state, as well as with a number of stakeholders. So that was a very, I guess, arduous process, going back and forth. And I guess, yeah, me being me, making sure that the words were very specific. And so we've, not to mention the need for redrafts of the amendment. So here we are. And I would like to speak to this amendment. So the bill came to us from the Senate, and as we know, we currently, in our statutes here in New Hampshire, we don't have any laws that pertain to data centers. And through my research, it's my understanding that at the state level, nor do other states. So I feel that it's important that we at least get a definition here in place. And so that's what this amendment does. And so the bill defines very clearly what data centers are and authorizes municipalities to regulate them in both commercial and industrial zones. So part of the amendment that was important to get right is that there was concern. And my understanding is this concern arose here in the House and not so much in the Senate. So there was some initial concern from some stakeholders that, for example, hospitals would get caught up in the definition of data centers. And clearly we don't want that to happen. But there were other stakeholders, for example, telecommunications, businesses, companies that were concerned. So that's the reason for the definition of data center that doesn't include, and I'm sure you've looked and read the bill, so that a data center does not include what is defined under Roman numeral section 1, and all 3, A, B, and C, must be fulfilled as an exception to what a data center is being defined as in statute. And then there's a second or that that falls under Roman numeral 2 of the definition. So just to be clear, there are, what wasn't addressed in the bill as amended by the Senate was telecommunication hubs. So that needed to be addressed. And then the other part of the bill has to do with zoning authority to permit data centers. So what I want to make clear is that a data center is an enterprise, and it shouldn't be treated any differently than any other type of enterprise that seeks to do business here in our state. So that's what that Roman numeral 1 under 67482, the zoning authority. And it says that data centers shall be a permitted use by right in commercial or industrial zones. And I would like to point out that this type of a construct is similar to what we already have in statute under our laws dealing with ADUs under 674-72, regarding detached accessory dwelling units under 674-73. And also we find the same type of a construct under 674-80 pertaining to multifamily housing in commercial zones. And then the last section of this amendment, under Roman numeral 3, is that it authorizes planning boards to adopt any regulations that are necessary to implement the provisions in this bill should it become law. And why that's important is it creates a consistent statewide framework for siting and regulating data centers. And I guess that's my explanation of the amendment. Other further comments? Representative Colby is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm extremely concerned. These, the very specific words that the sponsor mentioned have very specific negative consequences. Another major concern is that I did speak with Representative Damon and Senator Altschiller, who were both not contacted at all to work on this amendment. And it is completely unclear, especially under the zoning authority, to permit data centers. If we are allowing them to be permitted use by right within zoning districts designated for commercial or industrial, commercial and industrial looks different in each community. We define them differently. The bill does not indicate if a municipality will have the authority to adopt protections prior to the bill's enactment date to protect resources or the people that live there, to address water issues, burden on the grid, air, and all of these burdens are borne by the neighboring structures and the businesses that are in the area. And the cumulative effects of this bill and other bills being passed, which you also mentioned, is flat out negligent. We have a situation where we have allowed as a legislature for residential to now be multifamily residential to now be built in commercial, which puts a burden on electrical and water. And at the same time, we can have a daycare center in that same area, perhaps downstairs, that may be 20 feet now from a data center. And we are not looking at any of the impacts of this legislation as it is smushed together when this passed. Again, I think this this bill is negligent. I appreciate the attempt to describe a data center. I don't know who the experts were that were consulted. I've never seen any documentation saying that this is going to be a safe or recommended procedure. So I am going to oppose this amendment and the underlying bill as we were requested to do, similar to one of the previous bills, was to ITL the bill from the bill's prime sponsor, not mess with it more. Thank you.
Further comments? Representative Davis is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also very much appreciate the attempt to further define data centers, but I have some specific questions. The amendment on line 12, section B, says is used to serve the enterprise functions of the on-site property owner and is not primarily engaged in providing services to third parties. In Lebanon, we have data centers associated with Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center, Dartmouth College, Garmin, certain other mapping programmers that regularly provide data and other information to third parties as part of their basic function. So we go back to the problem the original bill presented, which was, do these entities now have to come back before the zoning board and get a special exception because they're doing something that is now not permitted by state law? I don't think that's what the legislature would like to put business owners through. And we heard compelling testimony from one such business here at the hearing. So I'm not sure if the Section B addresses that concern. I don't think it does at all, at least not in my experience with data centers. I also have a question about adding the words by right. What does that signify in terms of public notice? What does that signify in terms of regional impact? What if you have a data center that is going to affect the water and electric supply of multiple municipalities surrounding the one in which its primarily edifice is located? Does by right exempt it from any notice for regional impact? How do we deal with regional impact with data centers? None of these are addressed in this bill. And I am very much concerned, as I was in the original amended version of the bill, not the prime sponsor's original version, which she pleaded with us to find inexpedient to legislate. I am very much concerned that we are opening the doors to large data mining centers in the state of New Hampshire where we cannot afford to house them because we do not have sufficient energy or water to do so. Thank you.
Further comments? Representative Majori is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll echo the comments that my friends have made from Bow and Lebanon, and add also that folks, several of us on this side of the aisle would really, we recognize the importance of data centers, their inevitability, their value. We absolutely and unequivocally would like to work in a bipartisan, it would be great if it was a nonpartisan way to find the best solution to be able to permit those. I know Representative Davis and I I've had direct conversations with industry experts also to say that there are still terms which are undefined. There are conditions which are unexplored. We know they're coming and we know their value, but we need to know how best to protect the environment. We just talked about a bill before with zoning. Health and safety is critical when we're talking about the responsibility for the zoning board and for zoning ordinances. I would very much like to put the brakes on this bill so that we can come back, with all due respect to you, Madam Chair, for the work that you did. Nobody will ever question your deep dive. But with all due respect, to bring all of those people to the table, the stakeholders, the industry experts, everybody, and come back with a comprehensive bill that we can be sure that the governor will sign. Thank you.
Further comments? Representative Gilman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't repeat what my other fellow representatives had said about their concerns. But I do remember recalling during the hearing, both yourself and I asked about the energy consumption and the water consumption, which is maybe changing, but we don't know. Right now, there's particular statistics, and that still has not been addressed here. And also, there was a question of what bodies were consulted, and I understand that you have consulted stakeholders, but I would like to know which ones they are, and recommend that this be put on hold so that we can get groups together like the ST&E Committee, Natural and Cultural Resources, various groups that maybe the environmental New Hampshire EPA or so I guess I can't support this because there's still a lot unknown about the effects of these being allowed or shall be permitted in these zones that we've already permitted housing.
Further comments? Representative Grund is recognized.
Thank you. I'll be quick because I don't want to repeat what they said, but the permitted use by right does bother me a lot. I'm concerned that there's a definition of data center, but it's not really defining what types of data centers, in the sense there's power capacities, rack densities, there's kilowatts that we should be doing, server counts. And when you're saying that we can put these by right, when there's residential housing that could be put in there and the impacts to a town or the towns next to it, I just cannot support this amendment. Thank you.
Further comments? Representative Fracht is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I again don't want to repeat what my colleagues have said, but I would like to point out and remind people of the original purpose of zoning as expressed in the famous Euclid decision, which kept factories and residential areas separated so that the good people of Euclid, Ohio, could have some air and some quiet when they were not at work. And this bill, while it does go a long way towards defining what a data center is, it lacks standards. It lacks standards for heat production, for noise, for all sorts of environmental effects that would be an imposition upon the lives of people who are either living in the district, if it's allowed by right, or even in a neighboring residential district. So I am opposed to the amendment and the underlying bill. Thank you.
Further comments? So I'd like to just add a few more comments that I didn't express earlier, and it pertains to Section 1 under 674:82. So the purpose of the language by right is to establish and make it clear that a data center in a commercial or industrial zone should be treated the same as any other permitted use. The other important thing to point out is on line 20, it also says shall be a permitted use by right and subject to the provisions of local land use regulations. So clearly, all existing local requirements would remain fully in effect. And the amendment is explicit to this point. And so this includes site plan reviews, environmental protections, aquifer and wetland overlays, noise ordinances, building codes, impact fees, et cetera. These shall be applied in the same manner as for any other use. And I think it's important to note that what the key distinction here is that what we're trying to say is that municipalities may not impose use-specific restrictions on data centers that are not applied to any other permitted use or business within the same zoning districts. That's what the intent behind this is. We really want to have a uniform standard. And another note that I'll make a comment on is that there was some concern that not to support this amendment because it wasn't bipartisan, but I will note that this Senate bill, this is the second, I guess, body, if you will, this bill comes in front of. It is a Senate bill, so it went through the process over in the Senate, and the sponsors were partisan, and there was only 2 co-sponsors on this bill, and the amendment, the structure of the amendment mirrors the structure of the bill as filed, and to my knowledge, you know, the 2 sponsors, they worked on this, and they did not engage or participate in a bipartisan effort to file this bill. And so for those reasons, I will be supporting the amendment. Further comments from people who have not commented? Okay. Seeing none, I will have the clerk call the roll at this time. Sorry, just wait. The motion before us is to accept amendment 2026-1807H to Senate Bill 439, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald. Vice Chairman McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Guthrie.
Yes.
Representative Dolan.
Yes.
Representative Alward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz.
Yes.
Representative Karasinski.
Yes.
Representative Murphy.
Yes.
Representative Walker.
Yes.
Representative Gerard.
Yes.
Representative Stavis.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Majori.
No.
Representative Frocht.
No.
Representative Colby.
No.
Representative Grund.
No.
Representative Harvey.
No.
Representative Howland.
No.
Representative Jack.
No.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Amendment 2026-1807H is accepted with a vote of 11-9. Do I have a further motion? Chair recognizes Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move OTPA on SB 439.
Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Walker seconds that. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I believe enough's been said by everyone.
Further comments? Representative Majori is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the questions that I would certainly be asking about this issue is, are we following best practices with the bill that we just passed from other states, communities, counties, towns, planets that have tried to regulate this issue? Without that kind of knowledge to understand what were the pitfalls, what are the benefits, just to do a SWOT analysis. Without that, I just cannot support this bill as amended, but will state emphatically that I want to see that we permit data centers just the right way. I just unfortunately do not think this is the right way.
Further comments? Representative Davis is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to take issue with two things. One, you said that you don't want restrictions on data centers. There currently are no restrictions on data centers. So this bill actually introduces restrictions where there are none now, just to point that out. And also, we just voted on a bill that required municipalities to turn around proposals by their planning boards within 10 days. And I assume that that now applies to data centers as well.
Further comments? Representative Colby is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I I understand that the idea of this bill is that we don't put anything more restrictive on a data center than we would put on anything else. However, data centers, we know, come with their own unique set of problems or issues that we haven't faced before. I don't know of another business or piece of infrastructure that we could put into place that would create what is called a heat island, other than a data center. That's warming up 16 degrees Fahrenheit your neighboring buildings. I mean, there's so much we don't know that this is, again, I think this is negligent and irresponsible, and we can't sit here as a volunteer legislature and claim to have the knowledge enough to create this kind of law.
Further comments? So I just, in summary, I'd like to say that, again, to reiterate that the bill as filed defined data centers. It had a zoning authority to permit data centers as well as a section pertaining to the planning board adopting regulations. So not sure what's different here with this amendment. So in summary, I'd like to say that this bill as amended starts to modernize our land use laws to clearly define data centers and to ensure a fair and consistent application across the state. And I think that this is an important step to address this growing industry. Are there further comments? Representative Majori? is
Thank you, Madam
recognized.
Chair. A standard treats like things alike. As Representative Colby has just stated, we have a business here that is unlike any other in our community. We don't know how to regulate it yet. We want to, but we don't know how to, so we don't have a standard to treat like things alike.
Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is ought to pass with amendment 2026-1807H. And the clerk will call on Senate Bill 439, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Alward,
Yes.
the clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karasinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Frocht,
No.
Representative Colby,
No.
Representative Grund,
No.
Representative Harvey,
No.
Representative Martin, Representative Jack, excuse me.
No. What about Representative Howland?
Representative Howland.
No.
Let me just fix this. Madam Chair,
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 11 to 9. The committee recommendation on House Bill 439 is ought to pass with amendment, and that will go on the regular calendar. I will write the majority report, and who would like to write the minority report? Will there be one?
There will be one, I will.
Okay. Representative Majority will write the minority report.
With
Thank you.
input from the whole community.
Could you repeat that?
With input from the entire committee, thank you. Well, no, no.
A group project?
Yeah. the group project.
Okay.
We'll have a field trip.
And with that, the chair will close the executive session on Senate Bill 439. At this time, I see that it's 12:30, and I'm going to confer with the ranking member as to how to proceed. At this time, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 653, enabling counties to change the dates of their biennial budgets. And all right, the chair recognizes Representative McDonald for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to present to the committee amendment to SB 653, which is 2026-1797H.
Is there a second? Representative Walker seconds that. And Representative McDonald, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. Basically, what the motion does with the making it to the bill is it modifies the procedures for adopting, rescinding, and electing municipal budget committee. It modifies the timeframe for the appointment of the initial members of a cooperative school district budget committee, and it also enables counties to change the date of their biennial budget. As some folks feel that we're working to do the regular state budget and the regular county budget at the same time, and this would make the work a little bit easier.
Further comments? Representative Davis?
Thank you, Madam Chair, but I don't think that the amendment was stated accurately. I think the amendment seeks to do much more than change biannual budgets in counties. And I would like that to be explained.
Sure. So I'm happy to speak to the amendment. So what this amendment does is it essentially adds House Bill 1526, which passed the House, to Senate Bill 653. So Senate Bill 653 remains the same, and the exact language of House Bill, 1526 is added to the bill. So just to be clear, under House Rule 46, this is permissible because this language, as I stated, was already passed by the House in the current session, and it is properly before us, and it may be offered as an amendment to a Senate bill due to the fact that that particular bill came through this committee, and we have this Senate bill before us. So to go over what the Senate bill does is it empowers the citizens, and it gives them the ability to weigh in and have direct control over changes in the budgeting process at the county level. And the question to shift the biennial budget cycle would go before the voters on the November ballot. And similarly, the amended language, as I referenced with regards to that, to the House bill, that has a similar aim, and it empowers the voters, the citizens at the local level. And just to quickly go over what House Bill 1526 does is that it clarifies the municipal budget committee law for town voters, detailing how the procedures for adopting or rescinding a budget committee. It clearly defines how at-large members are elected and what their terms are. And it also furthermore affirms the moderator's authority to appoint at-large members when necessary, when that is specified in the warrant article. The bill also aligns the moderator appointment timeline for co-op school district budget committees with that of the municipal budget committee. And so importantly, this resolves inconsistencies in current law. And additionally, the bill's standard, the amendment, the House bill portion of this amendment standardizes the ballot language and establishes uniform voting procedures for official and special ballots. And what this does is that it ensures that at traditional town meetings and at SB2 towns and charter municipalities, that they follow consistent rules when either creating, modifying, or rescinding a budget committee. Because we have seen in practice across the state that this section of statute is not being followed consistently and properly. And these changes that encompass House Bill 1526, it's important to note that they improve transparency and they reduce confusion for voters and local officials. And that's what this amendment does. Further comments? Representative Majori is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I support Senate Bill 653 as it was presented. I think it's a fine idea. We heard that, and I would support our friend from the other side of the wall in his effort to move forward with this. As amended with House Bill 1526, absolutely not. And I'm reading directly from the Senate Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee report. And specifically in there, Senator Rochford stated, and I quote, that he has not heard from any of his 50-plus towns that this is a problem and questioned whether it is an issue specific to one or two communities. Senator, and I believe that that is in part for why the Senate did not support House Bill 1526. Senator Lang also questioned whether or not this was a statewide problem or if this was a problem localized to one or two communities. The New Hampshire Municipal Association opposed the bill 1526 as it was supported, and as I understand reading the committee report, may have indeed offered some suggestions for how it could be improved, which don't seem to be included in here. And I state that because Senator Gray said he asked one of the witnesses if he would consider any changes discussed in Mr. Deschain's testimony on behalf of NHMA. I don't see any of the changes as proposed by NHMA. Therefore, for those reasons, I'm going to support the Senate reject House Bill 1526, as this committee has also done, and therefore, and unfortunately, reject the bill as it has been amended. Thank you.
Further comments? Representative Grund is recognized.
So I am not going to repeat anything that Representative Majori said because he said everything I was going to, and I support his statements. Thank you.
Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is to accept Amendment 2026-1797H to Senate Bill 653, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Albert.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karasinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Frocht,
No.
Representative Colby,
No.
Representative Grund,
No.
Representative Harvey,
No.
Representative Howland,
No.
Representative Jack,
No.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Amendment 2026-1797H to Senate Bill 653 is accepted by a vote of 11 to 9. Is there a further motion? Chair recognizes Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move ought to pass as amended.
Is there a second? Representative Walker seconds that. Representative McDonald, would you like to speak to your amendment?
I believe everything's been said.
Are there further comments? Representative Grund is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to reiterate, I support SB 653. I thought it was a good bill that it enabled counties to do something they might want to do. Adding HB 1526 is permissible. The other body on the other side of the aisle sent it to interim study because they had many questions. I don't understand why we're adding this because it's going to end up probably in committee of conference, and I don't know what's going to happen from there. Thank you.
Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is ought to pass with amendment 2026-1797H to Senate Bill 653. The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Albert,
Yes.
the clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karasinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Frocht,
No.
Representative Colby,
No, thank you.
Representative Grund,
No.
Representative Harvey,
No.
Representative Howland,
No.
Representative Jack.
No.
Madam Chair.
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 11 to 9. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 653 is ought to pass with amendment. And Representative McDonald, that will go on the regular calendar, and Representative McDonald, will you write the majority report?
Yes, Madam Chair.
And who would like to write the minority report? Representative Grund, thank you. And with that, the chair will close the executive session on Senate Bill 653. At this time, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 643 FN, requiring municipalities to hold a public hearing and conduct a roll call vote when seeking to override a tax or spending cap. The chair recognizes Representative McDonald for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to present SB 643, an amendment 2026-1812H, 1812H.
Is there a second? Chair, Representative Walker seconds that motion. Representative McDonald, would you like to speak to your motion?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, so I will speak to the motion to accept this amendment. So again, under House Rule 46B, what this amendment does is it makes a few technical changes to the Senate Bill 643 FN as we received it and as amended by the Senate. So additionally, what the amendment encompasses is it also adds the language of House Bill 1505 to this bill, and that bill also passed the House in this current session. So this amendment is important because this bill addresses the state's interest in to have transparency, accountability, compliance, and public participation with regards to locally adopted tax budget or spending caps. So the bill, the underlying the Senate bill, it's for cities and towns with a town council that have adopted a cap. What the bill seeks to do is any proposed override of that cap must be preceded by a public hearing that is duly warned 30 days in advance. And it also requires public input of at least 1 hour. And additionally, it requires that any override votes to the cap must be taken by a roll call vote. And furthermore, reported either on or in the property tax bill to property owners. And as I said, the bill incorporates the provisions of House Bill 1505 that came before this committee, requiring that municipalities and school districts as well as village districts who have any type of a cap, be it a local cap or a budget cap, that they will be required to submit information that they already have through the budget process to the DRA through MS forms, so that the DRA can set a lawful and appropriate, legal tax rate for that political subdivision. This is important because, again, there are numerous examples across the state in years past, as well as just this past current town meeting cycle, where caps are not being, the law is not being followed. And it's important that when a political subdivision has adopted such a cap and the voters vote it in, that our laws be followed. And without this type of accountability through the reporting via the MS forms, our revised statutes annotated, to me, is nothing more than a revised suggestion annotated. So this bill, this provision that we saw under House Bill 1505 is important, and it complements the prime sponsors and the sponsors' intent in the underlying Senate bill. Are there other further comments? Representative Stavis is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that exhaustive description of the amendment, which the person who moved the amendment did not give. I would like to note, sorry, frog in my throat. I would like to note for the record that the Senate Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee report on the amendment that adds the House bill that passed, called the provisions of that bill unworkable and referred it to interim study. So here we go again with another bill that has been rejected by the Senate, recycled by the House, and probably headed back to a committee of conference, wasting taxpayer time and money. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further comments? Representative Grund is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to go back to something that I said back when we heard HB 1505, and and it was also heard in the Senate. How many towns, municipalities are not following the law, and if they're not, these people should be voted out and they should be reported to the AG. That is what should happen. So why are we creating another law rather than following the law that's already in place? Thank you.
Representative Majori is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll go to House Bill 1505. The bill prior to the bill that, or the 1505 tried to amend statute 325B3. 325B3 went into effect September of 2025. The thing wasn't even tested yet before we were submitting a bill to amend it. And the bill that created the amendment that went into effect in September went through several iterations in this committee. I think we have a workable law that may be confusing because it has been created to be confusing. It has been created to create problems for communities. We should be simplifying this, not consistently trying to complicate it. I am convinced we will have another bill to amend 325B3 next year, and we'll go through the same conversation. So I'll just recycle the comments I have now.
Further comments? Representative Colby is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think with the last two bills that we've heard and this one along with it, this is the very thing that people do not like about government, when decisions are made and then we don't like the outcome. So we just manipulate the system and move on again and try again. It was unworkable as 1505. It is still unworkable now. Thanks.
Further comments? I have a couple comments. So first of all, I went to the Secretary of State's office and had a discussion with regards to House Bill 1505. And I was told by the Secretary of State's office that they nor the Attorney General have any jurisdiction to enforce such a section of statute. So that's why, again, that's why it's important to have the provisions of the House Bill 1505. We have MS forms for political subdivisions, for various under municipal, budget law, again, so that the DRA can get the information that they need to set an appropriate, accurate, fair tax rate. So I don't really see what the difficulty or resistance is in ensuring that taxpayers are paying, that their property tax bill is in fact accurate. Again, I'll reiterate that under House Rule 46B, these last two amendments are totally permissible and proper. And if people don't like that, then maybe next session, the House rules should be amended. And that's all I would like to say. Further comments? Representative Gilman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am also stuck on the aspect that this same or very similar bill passed last year and didn't get implemented until March. And we don't even know if it was difficult because the results happened in March. And so, how do you know the answer to this question that's trying to be amended once again?
So, just want to make this very clear to people. So the budget, school district budget cap and town budget cap, that's fairly new law. And so that was the bills for that were enacted. That was a completely new concept and fairly complex. And I can assure you that the architects of those bills and those laws, again, had worked tirelessly to ensure that things are clear and workable across all political subdivisions for all seven forms of government that we have. And that's not an easy task. Countless hours went into drafting those bills, and out of care and concern, the reason why there's subsequent bills is to fine tune and tweak, because when you're doing something from scratch and architecting a law, there's a lot of parts and pieces that go into that. So that, just to be clear, I just want to state that for the record. It's from, and it's curious that a member commented that the laws were written to be confusing. Absolutely not. I disagree with that assertion. Further comments? Representative Colby is recognized. I'm sorry. Representative Grunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another piece I had is a note, which there is no financial note at the end of this, but the DRA had mentioned during their testimony that it would take them at least $75,000 to put in changes to their system in order to do this. So that's not noted. And then the other piece I'm very surprised to hear, but as mentioned by the chairwoman, that the Attorney General can't enforce state laws and RSAs as they're written. It's a little surprising to hear. Thank you.
Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is to accept Amendment 2026-1812H to Senate Bill 643FN, and the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes, please.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Aylward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karazinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Frocht,
No.
Representative Colby,
No.
Representative Grunt,
No.
Representative Harvey,
No.
Representative Howland,
No.
Representative Jack.
No.
Madam Chair,
Yes. Amendment 2026-1812H to Senate Bill 643FN is accepted by a vote of 11 to 9. Do I have a further motion? The chair recognizes Representative McDonald.
Madam Chair, I move OTPA on SB 643 2026-1812H.
Is there a second? Representative Walker seconds the motion. Representative McDonald, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I would like to say a couple of comments. I think we've pretty much covered everything that we need to cover on this. I think you've done an excellent job answering questions and presenting what SB 643. I'm sorry that I didn't feel my obligations to my partner to my right. I'll try to be more clearer on my next occasions. Thank you.
Further comments? Seeing none, I will just conclude by saying that overall, this bill as amended, it strengthens transparency and accountability for local CAPs. It ensures uniform compliance standards and reinforces voter-approved limitations on local spending and taxation. And this is important because we here in the House, one of the top, if not the top, concerns that our constituents have is unsustainable local property taxes. So I feel that this bill serves to, like I said, improve transparency and inform voters. Further comments? Representative Stavis is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. Will the $75,000 the DRA needs to implement this be passed to local property taxpayers?
Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is ought to pass on Senate Bill 643 FN with Amendment 2026-1812H, and the clerk will call the roll. Wait, did I do the, no. I'm sorry. I think I had the wrong amendment. Yes, I do have the right amendment. Okay. Okay, so the clerk, I apologize, the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Aylward,
Yes.
clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Karazinski,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Gerard,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Frocht,
No.
Representative Colby,
No.
Representative Grund,
No.
Representative Harvey,
No.
Representative Howland,
No.
Representative Jack.
No.
Madam Chair,
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 11 to 9. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 643 FN is ought to pass with amendment, and that will go on the regular calendar. I will write the majority report, and who will be writing the minority report? Representative Majori. Okay. And with that, the chair will close the executive session on Senate Bill 643 FN. So with that concludes our business for this publicly noticed committee meeting today. And I just have a few quick announcements. So the deadline to submit reports is tomorrow. And so I would ask that all reports be submitted to me by 7 p.m. so that I can review them. And if any changes are needed, that gives enough time to respond to that. And as you know, we have a House session scheduled for this Thursday, May 7th. And does anybody have any comments or questions? Representative Grund is
Can-
recognized.
Thank you. Can you clarify, you said House reports are due tomorrow. Do you mean the reports to you are due 7 p.m. tomorrow or 7 p.m. tonight so you can turn them in tomorrow?
I'm sorry, I guess I wasn't clear. Yes, the reports are due. I need to pass those, submit those to the committee researcher and assistant tomorrow. So as a result, tonight, yeah. And I would like to have the reports due by 7 PM tonight. Yep. If there's some sort of a hardship, please speak to me and we can work something out. Just one quick comment on that is that I did inform my caucus of the deadline. And what's typical practice in committees is when we all have the deadlines in our calendars is people may it might be have been a good idea to pre-draft some committee reports and then tweak it as necessary. So I did inform my caucus of that, and I hope that the similar advice was given to the other caucus here. Yes.
We received your amendments yesterday. Yesterday.
I don't know what that has to do.
May I? I think the concern is that it's assuming a certain outcome was going to happen. So when you-
I'm sorry.
And that
Yeah.
is why that's what the issue is right now.
I'm sorry that you feel that way, but that is you're entitled to your opinion, but that's incorrect. And for the record, I will state that I had to request several different redrafts of amendments. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. I'd like to thank everybody for their participation. This is our last committee meeting. Thank you for your participation and your time and effort to serve this committee and the people of the Granite State. Thank you and have a great day.